Welcome to Kings of Kimuras, your one-stop podcast for everything from mats to the stars. Join us as we dive into the heart of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, explore the thrills of MMA, and groove to the beats of music. But that's not all. We're also venturing into the unknown, discussing aliens and the mysteries of the cosmos. And of course, we'll be shooting the breeze, sharing stories, and laughs along the way. Let's roll.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Kings of Kimuras. I'm not even sure what episode this is. This is season 2. We've been at it for a while. First time back in the Richardson gym. We have been doing it in Plano. It's just more convenient today to do it here instead of like rushing over to film over there after our open mat. So pretty good open mat. Again, you know, there's like 30 people on the mat today. I feel like anytime we have one of those big ones, it's like really good, you know?
Yeah, always a good plethora of people to choose from.
Yeah,
all different sizes.
Visitors too, you know, so that's always really nice. So let's get right into it. Nogi Pans, that's the big tournament coming up. Pretty exciting event. It's going to be here in Dallas, Fort Worth, you know, so we kind of get like a, you know, be able to sleep in our own beds. That's like always nice for a big tournament.
For sure.
What are some of like the big names you're looking forward to watching compete?
Honestly, I don't really know too much about any of the black belts competing. I'm sure if I looked at it, there's like some good guys in there.
Sure.
But shoot, I'm just focused on winning it.
Yeah.
Brown belt, medium heavy, focused on coming home with that gold, ideally double gold. I think this is the first tournament I'll be doing the open class. The first major. I think I've done the open class and some like opens and stuff like that, but I think this is the first major I'm gonna jump into in the open class. I feel pretty good, pretty strong.
Mm-hmm.
I've definitely like put on a good amount of size, so I'm not like undersized by any means.
Yeah.
Like I'm on the top half of medium heavy, whereas before, like I've competed at medium heavy a little bit, and I was on the smaller end of the spectrum there, but now I'm like on the top end, so I feel pretty good going in.
Yeah, I feel like when you lift weights and you put muscle on your body, it's not only like making you better at whatever sport you're doing, but it's also protecting your body. It's like armor, you know? I see some of these guys and, you know, I've talked to several of them in the gym that are smaller guys, like always injured. The number one thing I ask them is, how often are you lifting weights? And most of them are like, well, I don't lift at all, you know, or like, oh, I lift a little bit, but not too much. I don't enjoy it. It's not about enjoying it. It's about reaping the benefits of it.
Yeah, you're going to enjoy. It's kind of a perspective change, I think, is needed there, because you're going to be able to come in and do the things you actually enjoy doing for a longer period of time if you take the time to invest in the stuff you don't really like to do.
Yeah.
Like, I love training jiu-jitsu. In terms of lifting weights, it's obvious I don't enjoy that as much, but I know that if I take the time to do the stuff that I don't quite enjoy as much, it's going to allow me to train jiu-jitsu for longer and allow me to compete at a higher level for, you know, till my body just kind of gives out or whatever.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's later on in my life and not in like when I'm 35, you know, like some people.
I know for me, I do enjoy the weightlifting aspect. It's the like cardio, you know, like anybody you can do cardio, you can do the air down, you can do the row or whatever it is you do. But it's like, how hard are you pushing yourself while you do that? And because I hate that stuff more, I push myself to go harder on that, you know?
Yeah. If you can do that, rolling becomes easy, you know?
Yeah.
Well, not easy, but, you know, you've put yourself through the hellfire when you really didn't want to do it, you know?
Yeah.
And just maintaining that discipline. And if you can stay disciplined with that, you should be able to come in, you know, maybe let's say you're not lifting weights and you can only make it twice a week because you're so beat up. Then you can start coming 3 times a week, 4 times a week, and then it just compounds from there.
Yeah. That kind of like leads into our next topic, which is the doping and gi worlds, like the guys getting busted, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because as a master athlete, I am somebody that, you know, I use steroids, but under doctor supervision. You know, I use peptides, but under doctor supervision. You know, but a lot of these guys are like doing it one, they're like doing illegal, right? Like black market stuff. But then as an adult in IBJJF, they actually like do test, you know, and my understanding is it seems like they're testing more often now.
Yeah.
And because some of these guys are like getting, you know, what was it like? They had to go to the third place guy. You were saying like
Yeah, I think for one of the divisions, it was one of the heavier
ultra
divisions.
heavyweight.
I think it was the heaviest division where they had to the first place guy tested positive, second place guy tested positive, and so they had to go to like I don't even think it was the guy who lost to the person who won it,
Yeah.
right? Because in the semifinals, like if you lose, then you share third
Right.
essentially.
Yeah.
It wasn't even the guy who lost to the finalists. They didn't think that guy popped too.
Yeah.
And so they had to test the other third place guy, and I think he was clean. But it wouldn't have surprised me if like he was doping before the event, but just kind of like, you know, it's an IQ test at that
Right.
point because you're only getting tested for that on that day on the event. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like you're getting randomly tested like you're in the UFC.
Right.
So
Yeah, they're not showing up at your house or your training facility. So, you know, if you're competing in adult and you have a chance to win, that more than likely they're going to test you.
yeah,
You know?
absolutely.
And one of the guys that got busted, like his nickname was like the equivalent of like, you know, steroids, right?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
like,
I think so. Yeah. And it's like, well, the dude had hair like 5 years ago and is now completely bald. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's kind of like a telltale sign.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like where there's smoke, there's fire type of situation. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I agree with like the no steroids in the adult division, you know, mainly because I think like they're trying to keep the sport pure. And I think that I only really agree with that for IBJJF, you know, because they are trying to like, I think their goal is to make the sport look very pure, you know, like the Gracies and, you know, guys are only eating fruits and vegetables, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, but man, jujitsu is a grueling sport, you know, and I couldn't imagine like, you know, I got started late. I was like 28 when I started training. So I couldn't imagine competing like as a teen and then as an adult and like my body is being broken down and they expect you to only recover with like, you know, a
Acai,
or
literally.
something. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're seeing it, the kids are getting younger and younger and using steroids, which is like if you're an adult, you take steroids and you mess up your own hormones, you know, that's on you.
Yeah.
But you have to think about the kind of influence you have on kids, like kids who are, you know, looking for the next generation
Yeah.
of athletes coming up. I mean, you know, I don't want to like point fingers to anybody, but there are some kids at ADCC Worlds this year, you know, the youth worlds, that I was like, that
Yeah.
kid looks really, really jacked for his
Right.
age. Like, I've seen some kids who are like genetic freaks. Like, I grew up wrestling with AJ Ferrari. That
Mhm.
kid's a genetic freak.
Yeah.
But didn't look to me like he was on steroids from that young age. You know, like his muscles were like, he was very cut and lean, but he didn't have like the bulging muscles that you see from,
Yeah, like a
some of these
12-year-old or 13-year-old, right? Like how does 10, 11, 12-year-old have like bulging muscles and they haven't even gone through puberty yet? You know?
Yeah.
It
That's
doesn't
a
make sense.
very big red flag
Yeah.
there. And you know, shame on the parents obviously for doing, if they are having their kids take steroids, even in any capacity, right?
Yeah.
Like obviously they're probably not on as much as like a grown man would be, but even just a little bit is going to affect their hormones for the rest of their life, you know. It could affect them even like going through puberty and like reaping the benefits from that. Because
Yeah.
their body's already used to synthetic testosterone or whatever they're taking. So, you know, their body might not even go through puberty properly.
Yeah.
It's just very sad.
I mean, I've known guys that were, you know, Brazilian and, you know, their parents started them on steroids at a very young age and they ended up getting cancer. And, you know, it's just like, I can't believe somebody would put their kid through that to potentially like give them an edge on something, you know, instead of like, hey, let's do everything right. Let's get you a nutritionist. Let's get you a strength and conditioning coach, you know, mental coach, like all of those things, do those first instead of straight to the steroids. Because, you know, a lot of those guys that like get on those steroids at an early age, they kind of like don't have as much skill, I feel like, you know, like because they're relying on that like that extra boost that the steroids give them,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know, and it's a mental edge too. Like I used to see it in the UFC all the time. These guys that would like be on the TRT therapy, you know, like Vitor, he had this like mental edge over a lot of the guys because he knew the steroids were helping him.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. And even from a brain chemistry standpoint, who was talking about? I think Derek from More Plates, More Dates.
Mm-hmm.
He was saying that testosterone actually does like change your brain chemistry. It's not just a purely physical thing. It
Mm-hmm.
actually gives you like mental sharpness. Like it for men, it's really good for like hormone balance.
Yeah.
Like we've had some people in here that were on TRT, and you usually think about people on steroids being like these very like hard-nosed individuals, like very tough and like kind of like not the nicest
Yeah.
people. But man, this guy was like happy-go-lucky, like always had a smile on his face, because he was always feeling good.
Mm-hmm.
The testosterone had him feeling
Well,
up to speed.
I mean, as you get older, it's just a natural thing. Your body produces less, you know, and that's why you see a lot of these guys like get in their 50s and they get these round faces and more round bodies. And, you know, a lot of that can be brought on earlier by diet too. And especially nowadays with like so much processed food, that is just naturally lowering people's testosterone. But fortunately now people understand more about that. And like guys my age, I feel like guys from like, you know, I'm 42, but guys that like are in their 40s to their early 50s now, you're seeing more of them on steroids, on testosterone, TRT. And I kind of wonder like what is it going to be like when these guys are like 50 and they're 70 and they're still using TRT, like,
yeah,
you know, because there's a few of those guys that exist currently that look super jacked and they're like 70, 80 years old. So like I'm kind of like, part of me looks forward to that, but also at the same time, like, man, I wish I could stay young forever, you know?
yeah, definitely. And that's probably what they think in their mind is like, all right, if I just stay on the testosterone, I can feel young forever. But it's like, well, kinda, like you might not break down as much as somebody your age who's natural, but at the same time, your heart's gonna take a little bit of like some damage, or like your heart maybe enlarge, or the rest of your organs will get bigger. And it also, like you said, depends on your diet too.
Yeah.
Like if you're eating KFC every other day,
Sure.
then your heart's probably gonna expand.
Yeah, what would be worse, right? Like taking testosterone and like good doses that you're getting your levels checked and your blood work checked, or like having a fucking diet of McDonald's and fried chicken. You
Yeah.
know? Like I would probably err on the side of like, let's just do the TRT.
Yeah, let's do TRT, like let's
Clean
eat a
diet.
bit cleaner.
Yeah.
Let's do exercise so you're not just like putting on unnecessary size.
Yeah.
I would take that any day
Yeah.
over just a sedentary lifestyle where you're just eating McDonald's and like chips and stuff
Well,
on your couch.
that kind of like falls into another topic we have here of like the molar affiliation. You know, like he's a guy in his 60s and he's like still on the mat, you know, like clearly he's on TRT. I haven't asked him that, but like just judging a book by its cover, right?
Yeah.
But he's like pretty healthy guy, you know, like I'm sure he's had his health problems, but you know, that's a reason why I went with him is like, I feel like he's pushing more of that like positive way of like, you know, living, right? Like being on the mat, living a healthy life, living a good life, not, you know, bad talking about people, not doing drugs, not promoting drug use, you know.
Yeah,
So
for sure. Yeah, he's just from the the little conversations we've had, seems like a really nice guy. Like
Yeah.
obviously, I was out of town for this, but we had a cross training session over at their gym that looked really cool. I wish I could have made it, and like a lot of high level training.
yeah.
Everybody in there was there to get better, so yeah, it looked really awesome, man.
Yeah, it was really good, man. I would say the only negative thing was that there were so many people there. It was kind of hard to like train, you know.
Oh
Like, it was
yeah,
like
for sure.
you had to really kind of like watch your space. I got a couple rounds in, but I trained with Cameron, but I'd made a mistake before I went there, and I like trained, or sorry, I went and surfed for like 3 hours before that, and so my legs were like completely fried. And then we
Oh,
go
yeah.
there and we train, and I was like, man, I'm only going to train with people that I know because I don't want to jack my legs up.
Yeah,
So
for sure. That surfing will take it out of you, dude.
yeah,
From just the one day that I went,
hmm
I like came back and taught at night. I was gonna show some like stand-up stuff,
uh,
or I did show some standing techniques and whatnot, but I was like, dude, my legs are toast right now.
yeah,
Like my core was just absolutely toasted. But yeah, that I definitely want to do that again. That was really fun.
yeah. I went this last week, and like the first time I went and did the 3 hour session in the morning, it was me and maybe like 8 other people. And the last time I went, it was just me. And I surfed for 3 hours, and my legs have never been so sore in my whole life. I think it was until Wednesday that my legs didn't feel normal. Like that's the first time they felt normal.
Yeah, it takes a lot out of you, but
Yeah.
I felt so much stronger and more stable
Yeah.
like once my legs actually recovered from
hmm
from the surfing.
The ankle stability that you have to have in that is like, one of those things that I didn't even recognize that I didn't have, because the first time you get on your feet are moving everywhere, and then as you adjust to it, you kind of understand like, oh, okay, I need to like plant a little bit more and like focus more on that hip movement and less on ankle movement.
Yeah, you said the thing that I was doing was I was leaning with my upper body.
hmm
So I'm like trying to lean back and forth, and then the board's going like this,
Yeah.
and then I just wipe out. And the guy was like, just like keep your upper body like a statue and
Yeah.
just kind of like move your feet. And I was like, okay, all right, I'll try that. And I'm obviously no pro or anything, but I was like feeling way more stable, and then I'd get too cocky and I started leaning again, and then I'd wipe out.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, I'm like, all right, I'm learning the technique just like slowly but surely,
hmm
you know?
Yeah. I'm not sure how many times that I've gone now, but it's got to be somewhere around like between 300 and 400 waves that I've ridden, which is a lot. And like, I think we started back in May, right? And
Yeah, I think so.
but they keep telling me to go to that place in Waco, because they actually have like a thing that pushes a wave that you can paddle and stand up on.
Oh, that's cool.
And but I just need to make it down there one of these days.
Yeah, it's not like it's right up the road like
Yeah.
it is in the con.
Right.
Got
We're
to drive
going-
a little bit.
We're gonna go to Florida this month for Disney, so I'm trying to like figure out. We have a day off, and I'm gonna try to go surf on that day.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we got to find a place to surf out
Yeah.
there. I'm sure there's not a shortage
I'm sure there's not.
of
Yeah.
wave places there.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. The IBJJF situation with the no-gi. How they kind of like
Oh,
they
yeah.
always throw the no-gi on Sundays, which like if you've competed and you've been there an entire day, nobody is really competing, right? It's like the gi divisions will have 10 people, no gi maybe 3, 4, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes 2 people. It's significantly smaller,
Yeah, for sure. And like, I don't know. I just think that they just don't give Nogi a lot of love because they're trying to they're having to compete with ADCC in terms of Nogi, but it's also like the rules just oh God, the rules are just so terrible for white through purple. Like
Mhm.
brown and black, like all right, all subs legal, great, let's do it. But you go from purple belt where you can only ankle lock and you can't even do like Aoki or any kind of rotational lock. You can't even turn inside
Yeah.
on a straight ankle lock at purple belt. And then you're supposed to just jump to brown belt where now everything's legal. Every rotational lock, every leg lock is legal. So like what? Like, why are we going from purple belt where you can only ankle lock and then we're going straight into brown belt where now you can do everything?
Well,
Yeah.
well, it's the same in the Masters, right? They don't allow the Masters to, like it's almost like they dumb down the Masters to be like the purple, blue, and white belt. No reaping, nothing but straight ankle lock. You can do like heel hooks you can do knee bars and toe holds. No heel hooks, no reaping. It's I just don't understand why they do that. Somebody's told me that they think it's because the master guys that, the Brazilian master guys that have been competing forever don't know those moves, and you know, they are not willing to tap to them, and like, well, then they shouldn't be competing in that rule set, right? Or they
Yeah.
should be willing to accept the fact that the rules are changed, you know?
Yeah. It's like your own ego is hurting the sport, dude.
Yeah.
Like, and you know, a lot of people share the same sentiment. I mean, I see it online all the time. It's like a dude will get his leg broken in like an outside heel hook. Like what happened, what was it? Maybe, I don't think it was last year. Maybe it was 2 years
2 years
ago.
ago, no-gi pans, right?
Yeah, and the dude got his leg broken with the
Yeah.
outside heel hook. And I see in the comments, it's always some Brazilian guy being like, this is why leg locks are dangerous, blah, blah, blah. I was like,
Yeah.
well, this guy had plenty of time to tap. I'm
Yeah.
sure it hurt pretty bad before his leg completely snapped.
Yeah.
And he had plenty of time to tap to this move. But he was like, nah, I'm not gonna tap. I'm just gonna let it break.
Yeah, I don't think guys understand, you know, like it's not like a pain thing, right? It's like all of a sudden there's a lot of pressure, there's a little bit of pain, and then your leg breaks. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, especially if you're not doing the right things defensively, hand fighting, trying to use your other leg to assist with the escape. If you're not doing all those things, that pressure comes on very, very quick.
Mhm.
And even if you have time to tap, even if you just eat it a little bit, all of a sudden your leg just breaks. And that's not on the guy applying the submission. He's doing his job. You're not doing yours. You're
Yeah.
just sitting there and like eating this leg lock and not submitting to it.
Yeah,
So like, whose fault is this really? You
Right.
know, is it the guy applying the sub? Well, if you got that guy in the same position, would you not try to do the same thing?
Mhm.
Right? Are you not trying to win this match?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a really silly argument from people online. It's like, it's dangerous, dude.
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
understand why they put all of those no-gi tournaments, you know, like they call it their no-gi season. It's really like what November and December is like their no-gi season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Europeans is this month.
Okay.
It's in like a few weeks.
Right.
And then you got no-gi pans like 2 or 3 weeks after that. And then 2 or 3 weeks after that, you got no-gi worlds. So
Mhm.
it's like all compressed into like 3 months.
Yeah.
Which is like, dude, can we like spread this out a little bit? Because especially if you're trying to win like that Grand Slam, right?
Mhm.
Where you're trying to win like no-gi, Brazilian nationals, then Europeans, then pans and worlds, those 4. I mean, they're all crammed in like 2 or like 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, you're talking like, you know, $1,500 to $2,000 a month on like travel and shit, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
It's
and
hard.
that's like doing it cheap, you know? 'Cause
Yeah.
on average, like your flight's going to cost you $500-600, hotel room because they don't tell you, right? It's like,
Oh, that's
oh, the
enough.
tournament's going to be from Thursday to Sunday. Like, okay, what day do I compete? We'll post that a few days before the event.
Yeah.
So now you got to like book your hotel for 5 days because you don't know when you're going to compete. And you're talking like $1,000, right? And then you got your food and whatever else you may need, Ubers, rental car. So, you know, it's not like jiu-jitsu makes a lot of money anyway. Like even as somebody that owns a gym, it's not like you're raking in the dough, and you're making less money if you're only a competitor, you know? So I just think it's kind of silly the way that they do these, man.
Yeah, it's not like professional at all because like I'm doing that combat sports report,
Mhm.
that $1,500 cash bracket
Yeah.
in Denver. They gave me an exact date, an exact time. This is when your bracket's gonna start. It's gonna start at 3 o'clock on Saturday. You guys will finish by around like 5 o'clock or so. We'll run through the bracket quick, and then you'll be out of there. And it's like, dude, how difficult is that? Like, it's not
Yeah.
difficult at all to set dates and be like, okay, brown belts, you guys will be going on this day. That's it. Like, plan accordingly. Instead, they're like, they give you a range of days. And they're like, well, brown belts could be competing on this day or on this day. Depends on how many people, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, dude, just have it one set day and let me prepare for that, and then don't change it. Like, how hard is that for real?
Yeah. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll finish up these last couple topics we have. So we're kind of talking about that IBJJF, how they, you know, they just not very well organized. And I don't know if they're still doing this, but for a while they were kind of like not posting the events. You know, they were like tentatively, it'll be in this month. And then like, you know, they wait like a month or something before, and then they post about it, you know.
Yeah, I think they did a little bit better this year about giving you more time. Like they announced no-gi pans like a good while before the actual tournament, but I think it was last year. Like last year I missed out on no-gi pans because I already had stuff scheduled, and then they announced it maybe like 2 months before, like a month before. And I was like, well, okay, I can't make that because yeah, I just had other stuff going on. I think like trials was around that time.
ADCC was kind of doing that this year too, where they were like really late on announcing stuff. You know, like they announced they're going to have one in December, right, for Austin. But I think that's like around the same time as like Nogi Worlds or something. There's like something happening around that same time.
I think the Austin Open's in November. I think it's like the week after Nogi Pan.
Okay.
I'm sure like I'm just trying to play devil's advocate maybe, but sure it's hard to secure a venue, you know, and like stuff like that. But come on, you guys can tighten up the timeline a bit here and like give the competitors and the coaches more time. So, because then when you do that, you get your event's only going to propel, you know, like if you give the coaches and competitors more time to prepare, you'll probably get more signups. You'll get people who are like actually training for the event and not just like, oh, well, I guess I'll jump in here, you know, like you'll get guys who are actually prepared to go out there and like win the thing. So yeah, I don't know. It's pretty odd.
I remember when they would put a schedule out, you know, every year, like, hey, these are the events. But now there's like an event every weekend, and sometimes like if we just talk IBJJF, sometimes they have like 2 or 3 events in one weekend, right? Like 2 here in the States and 1 somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so I imagine when you have that many people organizing, you know, it can get difficult to like keep track of everything.
For sure.
But
yeah, absolutely. But I don't think IBJJF has a shortage on money. I mean, I paid a good amount just for registration and to renew my card. You know, it's like $40 to renew it, and then like $170 to sign up. So
to have your gym affiliated, it's $400. You know, on top of like I have to do a background check because I'm going through this stuff right now. You have to do the background check and you have to do the safe sport training. Those 2 things alone are $200, and then to have your gym affiliated with them, it's a $400 fee. You know.
So they are. We said that jiu-jitsu is not too lucrative. Well, unless your name's IBJJF.
Yeah.
Because they're just raking it in, and they're taking advantage of the fact that they are the premier jiu-jitsu. Like in terms of like ADCC, I wouldn't even say it's like purely jiu-jitsu. Right? It's like more like submission wrestling, submission grappling.
Right.
But in terms of like pure jiu-jitsu, IBJJF absolutely holds a monopoly over the whole sport, and like they just drop the ball in so many areas. Like if you look at like IJF, you know, like the International Judo Federation, they have people from all over the world on that board because it's a global sport.
Right.
Well, you look at the IBJJF board, Brazil. Whereas like you have no representation from Europe, you have very little representation from the US. Like this is becoming a global sport. You have to kind of keep up with the times and like bring in people from other countries to like, you know, put in their input because ultimately that stuff matters.
It does, yeah. You know, there was an event here last weekend. It was that Abu Dhabi AJP or something like that. And it was a gi tournament. I think they had like 3 or 4 mats. And I was watching it online, and there were no people watching in the stands.
Like empty.
It was like one of the most empty events, and this is supposed to be like a bigger event, right? Like I think there's something about like if you place in these events and you get enough points, you can go compete in Abu Dhabi or wherever their main thing is at. But like I'm sitting here watching it, and I'm like, there's literally nobody there, you know? Like I feel like there's, you know, again, it goes back to IBJJF has more people at their events. I will say the last one they had at Dallas was one of the smallest ones I've ever seen with like 4 mats. I think they're just like oversaturating the market, you know, and when they do that, you're going to have like less people going to events back to back, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I think, you know, they're just trying to make enough money, or trying to make money, I guess. But I feel like because they've put so many tournaments that they've oversaturated the market, and it's kind of like watering it down, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they also have to hire referees that may not be qualified to run those events, right?
Yeah, they just need bodies basically.
Right.
They just need people running the event, and then like they got like the table workers. They're always like some teenager. It's like they
Giving
look
them a
down
free
for a
sandwich.
second. Yeah.
Yeah.
Free Jimmy John's if
Yeah.
you work the table all day long.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, and then sometimes they'll like mess up the scoring, or they'll like mess up the system, like enter something in wrong. It's like,
This is where we need AI. We need AI as opposed to like Brazilian referees and
yeah.
table workers, right? Like that's where we need to put it, because there's nothing more frustrating than having a referee that is like very partisan to one group.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
And like I know we've both experienced that, where like a guy you're competing against is Brazilian, his coach is Brazilian, the referee is Brazilian, they're all speaking together in Portuguese, and you get kind of left out, and the next thing you know, like you're disqualified, or they're reversing a decision or something. It's like,
Or you get points taken away for
Yeah.
no reason. Like, dude, I earned these points, and you're just like, nah, I'm gonna bring those points.
the only good thing I've seen lately is that they implemented that instant replay, and like the head ref looks at it immediately on the spot. But I still don't think that they have enough people doing that to like do it well. You know, like if there's one dude watching instant replays for 10 mats, how does he watch everything?
Yeah,
You know?
it's impossible.
Yeah.
You have to have a bigger team. Like they do something similar for wrestling, but they have like a whole like pretty much bus full, or like a truck full of people watching
Okay.
them, you know.
Yeah.
And so you get multiple different perspectives, and like everybody in there knows the rules, you know, because there's obviously rules training and stuff.
Yeah.
But there's a big group of people that are like, yeah, no, that was a takedown, you know. And if it's a majority vote, like if 2 or 3 people say no, but 7 people say yes, then they'll, you know, either keep the call or overturn it or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like a majority decision basically, instead of just one person.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a instance like that where I was competing at American Nationals in the gi. I think this is like 2020, like right after COVID,
Okay.
after everything started opening back up.
I remember that. Yeah.
Where I had the dude in the ankle lock, and it kind of turned into more like an Aoki. Now, I've seen black belts like Victor Hugo and like Mikey and stuff. It's a Aoki, all right? So they're like cranking on this Aoki, guy taps, they get their hand raised. Great, cool. I get my hand raised at the end of the match, dude taps, I get my hand raised, and then his coach goes up to the head ref and is like, hey, this is illegal, blah, blah, blah. Makes like a huge fuss. They send the video to some like unknown person at IBJJF. And then all of a sudden I'm getting DQ'd like an hour later. Or like
the guy
30
like
minutes
refused
later.
to get off the mat too. Remember, he was like just sitting there on the mat, you know, like
Oh yeah, you're right.
complaining about it for
Yeah.
5 minutes, you know.
I was like,
Yeah.
dude, just hold your L graciously, and like, cause you submitted, bro. At the end of the day, you tapped. Like,
Right.
even if this, and I've seen black belts do the same move. Like, it's not like, I'm doing something like brand new out here. Like, I've seen other black belts do this ankle lock and not get disqualified. So why am I getting disqualified 30 minutes after the match?
Right.
It's so ridiculous, but
Yeah, it's frustrating, man. And it's somebody that like I want to compete, but that is something that's like always in my mind of like, man, it's frustrating. You do everything right, and then like somebody uses their, you know, heritage as like a way to get out of it. Right?
they use their pull,
Yeah.
their leverage. Yeah, it's pretty frustrating. But you know, if I just go out there and submit everybody, then there
Sure.
can be no
Unless they come back and say it was illegal.
Yeah, they
right?
say
But
actually.
I think ADCC is not immune to that either, though. You know, we kind of saw that at this last Worlds where there are like some strange calls. You know, and one comes to mind with like Mika and
PJ.
yeah, it's like he clearly had the mount. Like there's 3 seconds on the clock, right? And he mounts, but he doesn't get the points.
Yeah. And then when the decision came, like PJ was pretty much dominant in the regulation time, right? So 10 minutes. And Mika was arguably in the driver's seat for that last 5 in overtime. Well, they have to look at the match as a whole.
Yeah.
That's a very like specific thing that the referees talk about, is the match as a whole,
Right.
not like who is in control at the end of the match. And if you look at the match as a whole, I'm saying that PJ won that because he's controlling pretty much 10 minutes of a 15-minute match. Well, that's like a big chunk of the match he's controlling. So how is he losing the decision here? I'm very confused.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when there's money involved, man, it's, you know, strange things happen.
Yep.
You know?
Especially if we're talking like, you know, obviously these are just allegations, but if certain athletes were getting under the table money to show up and compete at ADCC, then it's like, well, we might, it was pretty close. We might give you the edge here because we did kind of pay for you to be here.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, allegedly, right? But, you know, he's out here trying to buy a brand new car during like this alleged time of receiving some money, you know.
And it's not a beater car either off of Facebook Marketplace. We're talking like a new BMW.
Yeah, brand new.
Yeah, off the lot, fresh paint job. We're not talking like.
And if he's a jiu-jitsu gym owner, he is, especially in Brazil, right? You're going to be making like less money as a gym owner in Brazil than you would in the US. So
unless you just have the best sponsors ever and they're just giving you money for free, basically.
Yeah. Those guys probably get paid in acai though, and fucking Fogo de Chao gift cards.
That's what you ain't buying a BMW with that. So where is this other money coming from?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Let's talk about sport-specific training. You know, this is, I think people had like this mindset, and it was like in the right place. I feel like, you know, where they're like, you see guys doing like, I don't know. Like I saw a guy one time, he was a UFC fighter, and he's like using a pulley machine where he's like practicing his punches with the pulley. It makes sense, right? But at the end of the day, like, you should be training your muscles as a whole, you know, to make yourself stronger, as opposed to, you know, I'm just going to train this one specific movement. Or like you see the guys with like a gi on a band or something, and they're like, you know, swinging it back and forth like they're doing judo. Like, that's good for movement, but that shouldn't be your weight training to make you stronger.
As Bruce Lee said, balls don't hit back, right? It's like if you're taking a gi and you're like trying to do this resistance band stuff, it doesn't even feel the same as like if a human being is inside of the gi, you know? So it's like, if you're gonna go and do weights, do the weights like properly, like at Synergy, we'll do like the kneeling rows, like full range of motion here, you know? And like you're doing just a row with a regular old handle. We're not having like a sleeve of like a gi or something like that, because you're gonna get all the activation that you need from this full range of motion here, and you're not having to do like, you're not having to tear up your fingers either. Like, you already do that plenty. If you train in the gi a lot, you're doing that plenty already. Now it's focused on kind of like rebuilding and strengthening that whole system, right? From your back all the way through your forearm. So yeah, I mean, if you're gonna go and lift weights in a gym, it's kind of silly to then like try to implement like your sport into it. Weight training and your sport are two separate things. Don't try to like mix these two things together. I don't think that you're gonna get the maximum benefits that you would be if you were just treating the weights separately. You know, if you just treat them as two separate entities, I think you're going to maximize both. If you try to mix the two together, you're not going to really be like proficient in either, you know? Yeah, and I see that a lot of the times too. Like, I saw this one the other day. She had the band hanging from like the pull-up bar, and she was in like seated guard, and she had the gi attached to it in some kind of way, and it was grabbing like the collar and the sleeve and like doing pulls like that. And I'm like, well, you could do like the same thing with just like a cable machine. You could do like, you could be in the seated position and just do full range of motion pulls like that. And you'll get a better pump, and you'll get that lat way stronger doing that than doing this over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, when I see people doing it, it's like, what is the point of this? Is this just to make a video for social media you know, to make it look like,
Yeah.
because, you know, there's a guy here in the DFW area that he just opened up a new gym, and I saw him post a video the other day where he's doing like all these sports specific movements of like a knee on belly and like, and then I'm just like, dude, this is clearly like you're filming this and like going back and like, yeah, that looks good. Okay, let's do this next, right? This is not your workout. If this is your workout, you wouldn't be as strong as you are.
Yeah.
It's like just at some point people are just making content.
It's the aesthetic of it. Yeah. You're like moving, you're like looking nice and like blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, it's like, okay, if you want to do that, just grab an uke and like do moves on them.
Yeah.
Right? If you want to actually make a video in this kind of like context or whatever, if you just want to move and like look good moving, it's going to look way better with an uke anyway.
Yeah.
Like you're just like sitting here doing solo drills. Like, yeah, that looks cool or whatever, but people want to see you do it on an actual human being.
Yeah.
Like, you can sit here and do these neon belly drills on the bag all you want, but how about when somebody like actually gives you some resistance, like throws their knees to their chest and doesn't allow you to do that? Like, it's not going to look as clean. So, yeah, it just looks so silly. I just laugh every time I see something like that.
Well, I want to give, like, before we close up, talk about this J-Flow seminar we have. He's coming back in December 15th, I think it is. It's like the Sunday after Nogi Worlds.
Yep.
Or I guess the Sunday of Nogi Worlds. But you guys will probably be competing on like Thursday, Friday, I imagine.
Yeah.
But it's going to be exciting to have him back again. I know we've been like working a lot of his stuff, you know, and even I feel more creative in my stand-up and like more willing to do different things as opposed to, you know, before I just had like a couple, like a foot sweep and maybe like a double leg or something, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be good, man. I'm excited to have him back.
He's a great guy to, like, he'll give you everything. Like, he'll give you the information and just like, boom, in bulk. And it's like, all right, thanks for the information. I'm going to take 6 months to process all this because, like, especially with the foot sweep stuff that we were doing, like just the solo drills to get those down, obviously like it takes time.
Yeah.
But now that we've actually spent time doing these drills, solo drills and partner drills, I mean, I see people hit foot sweeps in here all the time and they don't have to rely on the mat being sweaty to do it. You know?
Yeah. I've definitely seen a lot of people get more, you know, I guess like better timing and stuff on their foot sweeps. But I've had some people that are like somewhat resistant to that. You know, I don't know if you've seen that, but I've had conversations with people that are like, well, why do I need to learn how to foot sweep somebody? I'm like, because it's a relatively easy takedown to hit. And once you take somebody down with it, it's kind of like you land in a good spot, you know, as opposed to, you know, if I do like an inside trip or a hip toss on somebody, I may end up in a position where you end up behind me. But when you foot sweep, you're going to land up in a top position, typically like in a side control or maybe even on their back, right?
Yeah. Or at the very least, you off balance them to like a front headlock.
Yeah.
Something like that. So it's just another, you know, you think about like levels of it. It's like, okay, you can attack the head, you can attack the body, you can attack the legs, and you can then attack the feet. And when you're proficient at attacking the feet and keeping guys off balance, all the other attack sequence like upwards, you know, up through the body, like even a foot sweep to like a single leg. I know we drill that a lot, where you hit like a sasai or some kind of foot sweep and you pick the foot up and you get up to a single leg and then you're finishing from there. So it's like a good low impact way of getting to the legs without having to shoot on somebody's leg where you're potentially like putting your neck in danger.
Yeah.
Like I shot on a big guy today at open mat. I think it was a beautiful shot, you know. I shot in nice and deep on the legs, but I ran right into his hip bone with my fucking face. So didn't feel too great, you know. Maybe if I would have just like, you know, tried to off balance him and then pick up his leg or attack the body, it would have been a lot easier on my neck and my head. So
well, I guess that's it for this episode. You know, it's this podcast thing has like been a lot of fun, but it's also been a lot of work. You know, I haven't been as consistent getting them out. I actually have one ready to upload that we got back last week, and I just haven't put it up yet. So hope to get back on a regular schedule. It's difficult, so just stick with us, guys. I think we got like 2 more episodes before we're done with season 2. And then we'll be starting up season 3. So we'll have a new background for that. I'm not sure what it'll be yet, but that's something we're trying to do, is like every season have a new place that we're shooting at. So appreciate it, guys. Stay tuned, and we appreciate it.
And that's a wrap for today's Kings of Kimuras episode. Thanks for joining us on this epic journey. Remember to keep training, stay curious, and always be ready for the next adventure. Until next time, keep your guards up and your minds open.